Lindsay. Good afternoon. Many of us have heard that expression, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, but we don't hear quite so often the rest of that quote, which says, do the difficult things while they are easy, and do the great things while they are small. Well, there are no small things, no small dreams in this community. We've already heard many of the stories of the work represented here on this stage and in our story walks. And today we continue that part of our journey together as a community. Now, like admirable communities, we're not fixed, we're not static, we're not stuck. We're on a journey to discover not what is easy or even what is best, but what is right for the communities we serve and for the world that we want to build together. So part of the journey is being here in this very special way. And when Jocelyn welcomed us to this gathering, she reminded us very eloquently, listen and learn, speak our truths, be open, share our dreams, and share our journeys. And that became very personal for me yesterday when an Acumen fellow approached me and said, why are you here? It was the right question. And I gave the easy answer. Well, I'm here because I admire Acumen and its founder. And I could tell it wasn't the answer he wanted. And he asked again, no, why are you here? And I said, oh, well, I'm an Acumen board member. And as such, I've been very supportive, as has the whole board, of Jocelyn's dream of bringing this community together. Still, he didn't like my answer. And he asked again, you didn't have to come as a board member. Why are you here? Well, my mind went through a whole series of scenarios and stories that I could share with Mario that might give him a greater sense of who I was and why I was here. Then I remembered Satya's warning, be interested instead of trying to be interesting. So I said, so Mario, why are you here? And he told me a little bit about his work, but we had so little time that we agreed we'd meet after this plenary and we'd share more with each other about why we both are here. Now, in that spirit, I'm going to attempt to answer some of Mario's questions and maybe questions on your minds as well. I'm going to actually try to be interesting for a few minutes. I started my personal journey in the rural South in the United States. I was born on a farm, living with my grandparents. We had no heat or indoor plumbing. I learned early to milk cows and to be afraid of snakes, because they always seemed to follow me on my nightly visits to the outhouse, as we called our sanitary facilities. I also learned to love stories. My grandmother, an American Indian by heritage and uneducated, would sit by the fire every night and tell me stories of worlds she hadn't seen and urge me to dream beyond the boundaries of that small farm and to pursue the dreams and be prepared for the dreams. I became the first in my family to go to university, the first to be a teacher, and then among the first to pursue a new pathway that opened for women in media. Now, that was not an easy pathway in the 1970s. There were very few signposts telling us which way was right or best. We made our own way so that others could follow. That was the 70s in the US. And in 2017, we are still marching for full equality. At 74, I am determined now to use the rest of my life's journey to do what became very early my purpose and my passion, to ensure that all women and girls have equal rights and equal access to all the opportunities to pursue their dream. And at 74, I'm now using all the power, all the influence, all the privilege that I have. And I'm part of what I now consider to be one of the most powerful and dangerous communities on the face of the earth: older women. I see some agree. We have nothing left to prove, nothing left to lose, and very little time to pursue the world that we are still fighting to build together. So Mario, I hope that begins to answer the question of why I am here. And I look forward to the speeches today and to the story walks and all the other times in which we get to explore as a community why we are all here. And our talks in this session are about personal journeys. They're about identity, about breaking through barriers, about bridging differences, about struggling for justice. And our first speaker life's journey took a really rather unexpected turn very early on. Jocelyn Wyatt was a member of the very first cohort of Acumen Fellows. And today, she is the executive director of IDEO.org. And her life's journey is just the place to begin towards understanding better why we are all here. Jocelyn?
Growing up, I was the oldest child. I followed the rules. I didn't take risks. I got good grades. I didn't drink until I was in college. And I almost never got in trouble. Not exactly the beginnings of an entrepreneur. My brother Ian, now he was an entrepreneur. At the age of 10, he asked my dad to bring the Wall Street Journal home from work every day, and he borrowed money from family members to invest it in the stock market. At the age of 17, Ian started his first company, and he dropped out of college after a year to build it. Meanwhile, while I was in college, I continued doing what I thought was expected of me. And then I followed my degree in anthropology and my interest in travel to a job in international development in Washington, D.C. Now, one might argue that this white, small-town girl from Western Massachusetts might not have been best placed to do this type of work, but here I was. Funny thing happened. About 2 years in, the head of my department announced that she was leaving and asked me to take over. Here I am, 23 years old, so psyched to be in my first job in Washington, D.C., gaining experience, learning from mentors, and boom, suddenly, I'm in charge. The only thing I could think was, these people must be really desperate. There were others in the department who were older and had more experience, but for some reason, Amy had chosen me. I had no idea how to lead a team of people, and when I think back on it now, I cringe to think about some of the decisions that I made. But as the dependable person that I am, I did my very best, but never really considered myself a leader. Something similar happened soon after I arrived in India as a business school intern. The country director was fired, and I was asked to take over. Now, I thought to myself, seriously, why me? I mean, I'm 27 years old. I have no idea how to lead a team of middle-aged Indian men. But I was a business school student, and getting a raise was pretty attractive, so I accepted the promotion. This time I did a little bit better, but I still was wishing to model leadership from others and was really hoping that I could find people that I could learn from. Now, you might be thinking that I got pretty lucky early on in my career, and I actually got lucky one more time. Soon after my time as an Acumen Fellow in Kenya, the country director announced her departure and hoped that I would join the leadership team. This time, though, I declined. While I'd been fortunate in many ways to get opportunities to lead, I still hadn't seen what good leadership looked like up close, and I was wishing for someone to show me the way. I realized then that I needed to identify other leaders that I could learn from who could mentor me. To me, though, leaders looked like these people. They were older and wiser. They had more experience. They were generally men. And while I had had many opportunities to lead, I just didn't see myself in these people. Having the opportunity to work with Jocelyn at Acumen was the first time that I had the chance to really work with and learn from a leader that I could relate to. And over the years, she's taught me to see leadership in myself and has given me the confidence to make big and bold decisions. After my year as a fellow, I joined IDEO, the global design firm that at the time was interested in doing more work in social innovation. I was excited to join because here I saw many great leaders that I thought that I could learn from. Things at IDEO went really well for a while. We got interesting projects, we found foundation funders to support the work, and we started to become known within the social sector. Then the recession hit, and foundations lost 40% of their endowments, and no one was prioritizing design and innovation. Over the course of the next year, Patrice, my co-founder, and I ended up writing 50 proposals and were only awarded 2 very small projects. Things were not working. It felt like the work that I had come to IDEO to do was never going to get off the ground, and I started to consider leaving. I approached my boss, Fred, to ask for his advice. "Stop this craziness," he said immediately. He encouraged me to look at the challenge from 30,000 feet rather than continuing to bang my head against the wall. "Stop traveling," he said, "stop going to conferences, stop writing proposals, and take a few months to really figure out what we should do. If we were unbounded by IDEO's business model, what shape might our social innovation work take?" So, Patrice and I spent the next few months trying to answer that question. We interviewed past and potential nonprofit and foundation partners. We met with lawyers. We created business models. We had conversations with people across the firm. And the more we heard, the more it felt like our dream was impossible. I spent a lot of time in my head trying to figure out the answer to this question of what we should do with IDEO social innovation work. And then I went to Kenya for a project that we were working on with Acumen. After a book event for Jocelyn, we sat down to catch up. I shared with her how inadequate I felt. It seemed to me that the problems in the world were just too great and my ability to address them far too small. The week in Nairobi had really hit that home. After our meeting, it was time to fly back. I got on the plane despondent and wrote to Jocelyn. I'd never felt less like a leader, and I needed her advice. She knew exactly what to say. She responded, "My only advice is you really listen to what that voice inside you is saying. I know you'll figure it out. Just be focused on being honest with yourself and others." In the time that I needed it most, she taught me to have confidence in myself, not only when things are going well, but also when I was at my most down. I returned to IDEO with real clarity on the direction that we should take and the conviction to make it happen. I'll never forget it. It was Friday, March 13th, and Patrice and I were joined by 12 IDEO partners. We shared our findings and made the recommendation to create IDEO.org. And after we finished speaking, Tim, the CEO, looked to the other partners and said, "Well, if we at IDEO believe that our mission is to have the most impact that we can through design, and this is the way that we can have the most impact, then I think the answer is clear." In that moment, IDEO.org was born. For the first time, instead of leadership being thrust upon me, I listened to my mentors, believed in my intuition, made a compelling case, and became a social entrepreneur for the first time. I chose this. IDEO.org is now 5.5 years old, and I couldn't be prouder. I believe so strongly in the work that we've done. One of the most rewarding things has been visiting the projects that we've done years later and seeing their impact. These are pictures of Asili, a social business that we designed in Eastern Congo with American Refugee Committee. Seeing people getting treated for illnesses at the health clinics, visiting the water points, and meeting with the agricultural cooperative members was so rewarding after we had spent so much time designing every aspect of the model and the experience. And here it was, all happening as we dreamed that it would. I'm also incredibly proud of the organization that we've built. We have a team of 80 designers in San Francisco and New York, and I now have the ability to do for them what Tim, Fred, and Jacqueline did for me, to help them identify their own paths, to teach them to trust their intuition, to encourage them to make big and bold decisions, to show them that there are many ways to be a leader, to make change in the world. And now, nearly 2 decades in to my own professional journey, I'm continuing to work to be a great leader, and I know now that that work will continue for the rest of my life. Thank you.